Hi, I'm Abby. I have a lot of records, and this is Vinyl Monday. So welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Vinyl Monday is the series where once a week I sit down and just talk about albums that I love. If 20-minute deep dive episodes aren't your thing, don't worry, I also do Vinyl Monday in 60 seconds, both here on my channel as well as over on my Instagram. Alright, so a little bit of housekeeping before we get on with this video. It looks like you guys have picked what the 2 pick your own episodes are gonna be. I'll put those up in text on the screen now because I haven't actually looked at the poll as I'm sitting down to film this, but I will look at it as soon as I'm done with all the B-roll junk. And as always, if you hear leaf blowers, just ignore it. It's that time of year where all my neighbors decide to do lawn work at asinine times of day. Wasting no more time getting into this week's record, we're talking about Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. Congrats to those who guessed it. Remember, if you want a hint at what next week's episode could be, all you gotta do is check out my community tab. I post behind the scenes stuff over there. I post memes. We keep a running count of how many videos it takes for me to swear 5 times in one video. We call it our swear. I will never get sick about our swear. I don't know how you guys feel. And lots of other fun stuff. You can check that out over on my channel page. Yes, I do dress for the theme every week. Today's theme was just Horseman himself, Roger Waters, and this is the only black t-shirt I have. Is it an Aerosmith t-shirt? Yes. Is it literally the only black t-shirt that I have? Also yes. Listen, I specialize in ridiculous, okay? In what world would I own more than one plain black t-shirt? Savor this moment now because this is the only time you will ever see me in a plain black t-shirt. And you are allowed to make fun of me in the comments for that. Anyway, let's take the plastic off. My copy is a repress. I bought it at a flea market down by where I went to college, and full disclosure, this has a lot of packaging missing. So, the Wish You Were Here cover art was designed by Hypnosis. This was the art collective that the legendary Storm Thorgerson was in. This was shot on the Warner Brothers lot, and we have Danny Rogers over here in the blue and Ronnie Rondell wearing the fire. Rondell was wearing what was supposed to be a fire retardant suit under his jacket, but yeah, he low-key caught on fire anyway. The thing about fire is when the wind changes direction, it might burn you. And that is exactly what happened. The wind changed direction and his mustache was set alight. So what we're actually seeing here is a mirrored photograph. The 2 guys swapped places, so Ronnie would get a little less burned. As you can imagine, when fire is involved, you have to photograph very, very quickly. So this was caught in a matter of frames. They put Ronnie out and then mirrored the photo for this jacket. As incredible as this photograph is, I mean, the light, the staging, you don't get much better than this. As great as it is, my favorite art is on the back of the jacket. Storm Thorgerson described this as an empty suit selling his soul in the desert, and that's pretty much what you get. That could mean so many different things, and yet it is so literal on this jacket. I love it. This is my favorite photo of the bunch, and as much as I hate clear vinyl, I would love to have a clear vinyl pressing of Wish You Were Here just because of this shot. We've got a little more art on the inner sleeve. This is another favorite snap of the bunch, by the way. I love me some weird postmodern crap. B-roll Abby will be giving you a much better view of all of this, I promise. And on the reverse, we have our track listing, all of our lyrics for the whole album, able to fit on one sleeve, and this shot of Lake Mono in California. All of this was shot by Aubrey Powell, by the way. Now, what you won't be seeing on my copy, because it is very much not a mint copy, is the all-black shrink wrap. And on the front was the motif that you see on the label of the disc itself. The two machine hands shaking hands. That was so stupid. The two machines shaking hands. Taking off that opaque black shrink to give you this must have been one hell of a reveal. And it was one hell of a reveal for the Floyd guys as well. If this was my band and I got a shot like this, I would be freaking out. This album also comes with a postcard of Lake Mono, which was your hint this week. I also don't have it. If there was any group of guys that understood the power of good album art and really interesting packaging, it was Pink Floyd and Storm Thorgerson. On Wish You Were Here, you have Horseman Roger Waters on bass and vocals, David Gilmour on guitar, steel guitar, and vocals, Rick Wright on the keys, Hammond organ, Steinway piano, Mini Moog synthesizer, and God knows what else, and Nick Mason on drums. Roger and David also used a couple different EMS synthesizers on this thing. Once you get into this period of Pink Floyd history, synthesizers get very important. Dick Perry also plays the sax on Shine On You Crazy Diamond. And we have backing vocalists Vanetta Fields and Carlino Williams of Ike and Tina Turner's Ikeettes on this thing. This was engineered by Brian Humphreys and Peter James. And the special guest on this record, of course, is Roy Harper on vocals for Have a Cigar. David blew out his voice singing Welcome to the Machine, so he couldn't sing Have a Cigar like he was supposed to. Roger tried singing it, but nobody liked Roger's take, so they called in reinforcement via friend of the band, Roy Harper. He was a friend of Zeppelin's too. Hats off to Roy Harper has entered the chat. And he was a friend of basically everybody, now that I think of it. There is this video out there, I saw it once and I've never been able to find it since, of David and Roger trying to sing Have a Cigar live, but they can't get the vocals right. So the whole thing just descends into absurdity and fits of giggling. It's the best thing ever. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. The pressure to follow up Dark Side. Yes, I will be doing a Dark Side Vinyl Monday. No, it will not be anytime soon. Dark Side was a runaway success, the likes of which Pink Floyd had never seen before it. We think of Pink Floyd as the cultural institution that they are today because of this album. The pressure to follow up this record has a huge hand in the thematic content of this one. I think they had a publicist. Did you catch me making sure that was right side up? The thing about Floyd in the wake of this huge success is that they never really engaged with the press. I don't even think they had a publicist. So despite the smash hit that was Dark Side of the Moon, Floyd was seen as kind of the hermits of rock and roll. Floyd was recording for a project called Household Objects. It would have been an entire album made up of sounds from, you guessed it, just household objects. Clearly this didn't come to fruition. I'm shocked we've ever heard any of it. But one thing of note came from these sessions, and it's a song called Wine Glasses. Wine Glasses went a little like this, which turned into the beginning of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. After Household Objects was scrapped and post Dark Side, Floyd wrote 3 songs: Shine On You Crazy Diamond, Raving and Drooling, and You Gotta Be Crazy. These were all debuted live together, and Raving and Drooling and You Gotta Be Crazy, I gotta sort through my stack of Floyd records here. Can you tell I went through a bit of a Floyd phase in college? Are saved for animals. Using my soapbox here to say Raving and Drooling is so much better than Sheep. I do not like the Animals album. Shine On You Crazy Diamond was seen as the most viable of these 3 songs to work on a project from, so it sparks the Wish You Were Here sessions. Recording for this album lasted from January to July of 1975 at EMI Studios, now known as Abbey Road. These sessions were really long. The guys had an okay starting point, but they were really struggling to come up with the material with which to bolster it. It was a struggle to come up with both things they liked and things that the label would see as a viable follow-up to this big thing. There were also some technical issues involved. Brian Humphries, being used to Pi Studios, where the guys recorded more, wasn't familiar with the Abbey Road setup at all. Brian accidentally added echo to the entire backing track of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. The whole thing. Which Nick and Roger had spent hours upon hours crafting. So they had to go back and redo literally the whole thing. Now there's one big piece of Wish You Were Here lore and Pink Floyd lore, really, that I've deliberately left out until now. At this point in the Wish You Were Here story, in order to understand Pink Floyd's future, we must first understand their past. That past being Syd Barrett's mental decline and departure from the band. I'm not going to detail many specific incidents in this video, at least not the ones that are irrelevant to Wish You Were Here. I'm only covering what is absolutely relevant because Syd Barrett was a real human person with human feelings, just like you or me. And I wouldn't like all of my worst moments basically becoming lore. Syd Barrett only appears in full on their first album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. I have my original US stereo copy right here. It is my baby. It's very fragile, so it's not coming out of the shiny plastic. But I do have a video all about Piper on my channel. Through 1968, it becomes increasingly apparent that Syd is unable to fulfill his duties as a member of Pink Floyd. David Gilmour is brought on board basically to fill the gaps that Syd would normally fill. Syd's last appearance on a Floyd studio record is on Saucerful of Secrets. He plays guitar on the song Set the Controls to the Heart of the Sun. That is the only Floyd song with all 5 members on it. Thank you, people in the comments of the Piper video, for pointing that out to me. Since Syd isn't on vocals, I admittedly forget he was there. And Syd does the vocals on Jug Band Blues, a song referencing his own departure. It's awfully considerate of you to think of me here, and I'm much obliged to you for making it clear that I'm not here. Through all of the tough stuff he was dealing with, Syd was always a very clever guy, and Jug Band Blues is a heartbreaking example of that. The 5-piece Floyd was all gigging together for a short time, but again, this was becoming more and more difficult. Nick Mason described a night where all the guys were on the way to a gig and they were supposed to pick up Syd. At this point, Syd was having a really rough time and was no longer able to complete full shows. Nick remembers the decision being made not to pick up Syd, and that's how founding member Syd Barrett unceremoniously left or was removed from Pink Floyd. Syd's music career continued for a while after this. He recorded a handful of albums, including The Madcap Laughs, recorded after his departure from Floyd in '68, not released until 1970. But as Syd became increasingly unable to perform a full set, he gradually faded out of the music industry, and likewise, out of contact with his former band. that is, until 1975. This was the day David Gilmour married Ginger, actually. They were all working at EMI Studios on his wedding day. Low-key, if I were Ginger, I would be upset that my gorgeous rock star husband had to work on our wedding day, but it is what it is. They're at the studio, and this strange guy shows up. This strange bald guy with no eyebrows, and he's a little out of it, but they make small conversation with him. The Floyd guys aren't totally sure how this other guy got into the studio, but they're making small conversation with him, and he says something that makes the guys realize, holy shit, that's Sid. And this was a disturbing realization for everyone involved. Sid was unrecognizable at this point, both physically and in personality. I remember Sid as Piper Sid, this really whimsical, lighthearted, doesn't take anything too seriously, and very witty guy. And he showed up to the studio that day in all senses a shell of his former self, and that must have been horrifying for his former bandmates to see him that way. I've heard that upon realizing it was Sid, Roger broke down in the studio that day. Sid attended the wedding reception of David and Ginger, but left without saying goodbye. And aside from running into each other one more time, briefly in passing at a Harrods, this was the last time most of the Floyd guys ever saw their friend. But they never forgot about him. David always made sure that Sid got his royalties, and they had Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Shine On You Crazy Diamond was written before Sid showed up in the studio that day. It's just some tragic cosmic coincidence that he did show up, and I believe his visit that day fueled the emotion behind the song that you hear on the album. Shine On You Crazy Diamond was originally intended to be one long, continuous song that took up an entire side of the album. Kind of like Echoes takes up all of side B of Metal. You know, Echoes, the best Pink Floyd song. The undisputed best Pink Floyd song. The best Pink Floyd song! Once the rest of the Wish You Were Here material was worked out, it was decided that the song would be split in two to bookend the album. And the track listing of Wish You Were Here goes as follows. On side 1, you have Shine On You Crazy Diamond parts 1 through 5, followed by Welcome to the Machine. The second side is opened with Have a Cigar, followed by the title track, Wish You Were Here, and the album closes with parts 6 through 9 of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Just 5 songs, 44 minutes long, but if you count all 9 parts of Shine On You Crazy Diamond as one song like I do, it's the longest in their entire discography. Wish You Were Here was released in September of 1975, and despite being Floyd's fastest-selling record upon its debut, critics did not see this as a worthy follow-up to Dark Side. Like, it's 1975 and this bitch is still charting. Any album to follow it is gonna be tough. So, what do I think of Wish You Were Here? Full stop, my view on this album is very, very biased. For one, I do think it is the best album of Pink Floyd's classic era, from Dark Side through The Wall. Wish You Were Here has the most consistent theme of the 4, while still bearing songs that, when you pull them from the context of the album, they stand alone well. You can't really say that for every Pink Floyd album. I do not like the Animals album, but Wish You Were Here holds up, whether it's the whole or the sum of its parts. I also hold a biased view of Wish You Were Here because I've never spoken about this on the internet. I'm probably not going to speak about it on the internet again, to be honest with you, but I have to. I hardly speak about it in real life, but as a person who has their opinions on music consumed by others, right? I feel that I owe a level of authenticity to you guys. If there's any factor at all that affects my consumption of an album, that skews my view to an extent at which it can't be ignored, I have to inform you of that. I owe you a level of authenticity in that right. My dad is absent. And we do still have a relationship, even if he's not really around. But decades of alcohol abuse have rendered him not the father that I remember from growing up. A life of physical labor breaks your body. A life of alcohol abuse fucks with your brain, and my dad has been subject to both. I see him from time to time. I accept him as best I can, but I accept him until I see these glimmers of the guy he used to be. This really witty, charismatic, smart guy. We have that same kind of asshole sense of humor. I see the dad I once knew through the cloud of destruction, both inflicted upon him and the destruction with which he inflicted upon himself. Like Syd Barrett's absence from Pink Floyd affects quite literally their entire discography, my dad's half absence, in this sense, is the river that runs through the course of my entire life. It is the water that constantly erodes at the riverbank and always feeding the plants that grow there. I'm forced to reckon with a unique half absence that is rarely articulated in any way. And that half absence is articulated on Wish You Were Here. I'm proud of my dad for getting sober, but I miss him. He's not physically bereaved of me, thank God. He was nearly physically bereaved of me a couple times, but I miss him. Even though he's still around, per se, I still miss him. Right. Back to the music, I guess. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Rick Wright is the backbone of Pink Floyd. Without Rick Wright on keys, Pink Floyd would be just another British band with a great guitarist. It'd still be a good band, but there were plenty of those to come out of Britain. Rick Wright was the element that set them apart, and that really shows on Wish You Were Here. His work on songs like Welcome to the Machine took Floyd to the next level. I have this memory of playing Wish You Were Here in one of my college apartments. My room was the size of a shoebox, literally 7 feet by 9 feet, but I insisted upon bringing my entire turntable setup anyway, with the full surround sound system, right? So when I'd play Wish You Were Here and Welcome to the Machine came on, swear to God, the floor of my room would be shaking, and everyone in my apartment complex, everybody within maybe a 50-yard radius, would hear me. Rick created this epic wall of sound. I am divorcing that term from its Phil Spector association, and I am applying it to the soundscape on Wish You Were Here. This is some of Rick's best work on a Floyd record. This was also Rick's favorite album that Floyd put out. I absolutely see why. That soundscape is also thanks to the audio engineers. We love some good audio engineers on this channel. Roy Harper kills it on Have a Cigar. He embodies the character of the sleazy music exec so well. I love a good character moment on a Floyd record. Maybe that's why I'm unfortunately partial to The Wall. You can make fun of me all you want for enjoying the Horseman Sing About Dead Dad album, okay? I love the dialogue between David and Roger's playing in the back half. They played off each other really well. And I also really like Nick's drumming part in the back half, how he sort of kicks up that momentum. It's really what the song needed. I like Wish You Were Here, the song, but it's a little done up for me. The production is very lush. Not to say I don't like Wish You Were Here, the song. This is a no-skip album for me. It's just my least favorite of the bunch. I like Wish You Were Here. I love the others. And Shine On You Crazy Diamond is a wonderful bookend to the album. I think it was absolutely the right call to split the song in two. Holy shit, David's solo in Shine On Part 6. David Gilmour is a very fluid guitar player. Trevin and I were just talking about this the other night. On a spectrum of fluid players to rigid players, David is all the way on the side of fluid. It's a very pretty playing style. If his playing style had a name, it'd be called Pillow of Winds. So when he gets a little more, I won't say aggressive or maybe assertive, I don't know, it's just a little rougher around the edges. He gets like that on the Pulse recording of Comfortably Numb, my favorite David Gilmour solo ever, or Niall's song, or Shine On Part 6. When he gets that edge in him, it is euphoric. The thematic, oh my god, ow, ow, ow. This is the shittiest recording session ever. This video is gonna be so bad. The thematic structure of this album kind of follows the grieving process, at least it does to me. It begins with Floyd describing Syd Barrett as they knew him when he was young, when he shone like the sun. And then we don't get much of that happiness at all. It goes right into his deterioration. You've worn out your welcome with random precision. It feels bitter over Syd seemingly wasting all his potential and his beautiful spark. Then we have Welcome to the Machine, which is ascribing a stereotypical origin story to a rock star, regardless of what their origin story might actually be. You know, you bought a guitar to piss off your mom. It ascribes the cookie cutter rock star origin story, and in a way that strips the musician of his humanity. Then you have a Cigar. Once the musician is stripped of the individuality, of the humanity, the sleazy record exec shops him around as a product, something to be consumed and mythologized. They don't care, much less know anything about their act. Oh, by the way, which one's Pink? This was a real question that Pink Floyd was asked, by the way, more than once. Considering Welcome to the Machine and Have a Cigar, by the time we get to the title track, it's like, no wonder this happened to Syd. The pressure of very suddenly jumping into the spotlight and being forced into something that is a lot bigger than you, whether it's the idea of fame or the machine that is the music industry. It can be too much to handle when you've got other stuff going on. The music industry chews up its gentle, beautiful souls and spits them right back out. Rock and roll is Saturn, and it devours its sons. Then parts 6 through 9 of Shine On is the resolution. It's bittersweet, and the most bittersweet moment is when, at the very end of the song, Rick plays this. Where are you, Syd? In case you didn't catch that, it's the vocal line, of See Emily Play, which is the first song on my US copy of Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Soon after dark, Emily cries. Ooh. It's their final goodbye to their hero, their painter, their Piper, their lost boy. Wish You Were Here is a lot. It's a heavy record, and I'm really, really glad that I had next week's record to alternate with this one, or else I would be severely depressed. Wish You Were Here was Pink Floyd's grieving process, I think. With this record, they finally reckoned with Syd's unfortunate transformation. It shifts the blame from Syd as the destroyer to the scene for cannibalizing their friend. Wish You Were Here isn't about Syd's illness, it's about Syd's absence. They wanted him to be remembered as a whole person, and that's how I choose to remember him too. Wish You Were Here, it articulates a unique half-absence that I think anyone who's half-lost somebody they really loved can identify with. My personal favorites on this one are all parts of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, Welcome to the Machine, and Have a Cigar. Whew, and that is it. I can't believe I got through this one. That was Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. What do you think about this album? You should leave a comment letting me know. I love hearing what you guys have to say about the albums that I love. And if you like what I do here, you should like this video and subscribe to my channel. I post new episodes of Vinyl Monday every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!